I got started in beekeeping was through my transition from the military. I got out of the military as a veteran that I and back from the military. And so when I got out of the military, really for me, it was trying to find that next mission. I was not done serving in the military, but I was too injured to deploy, so the military was done with me. And I got home, a disabled veteran, being treated by the VA for all these injuries, and went through a lot of transitional struggles. But when I found beekeeping, it was really the first time in my life since I'd left the military where I felt like there was something I could get behind to serve my nation, to continue serving my nation. We all understand the importance of beekeeping and what we do for our production here in the United States. So as I went on my beekeeping career, these disabilities did not get better. In fact, they started getting worse. And in 2021, I was also in a car accident where I was crushed between two vehicles and suffered a traumatic brain injury. And then I also have a very severe neck injury, which is turning into a fusion here in a few months. So all of this stuff happening, it hasn't stopped me from beekeeping. And the thing that we're going to talk about today is accessibility. How can we use technologies, both low-tech and high-tech, to continue allowing us to work in the bee yard on how to set up an accessible apiary. So what are the things you should be thinking about if you're working with people with disabilities, or if you yourself want to make the apiary a little bit of a safer place? So we're going to be covering a bunch of technologies today, and what you can use in your bee yard to make things a little easier on your body. And just before we get started, I also want to thank Joe Ricker with Addie's Orchard. He's one of our partners here in the state of Purdue for Heroes To Hives, and then also Purdue as well, and Dr. Harper and the work that they do here. So Heroes To Hives is coming to Indiana, and we're going to be doing some on-ground training here. This is kind of our launch today. I also want to mention Agribility. Agribility is the organization that has pretty much changed my life. As a disabled veteran, I came out of the military. When I started beekeeping, I hooked up with our Agribility person, and Joe's right here, where he works for Agribility as well. And basically, the technologies that they suggested to me right when I started getting into more production scale beekeeping have literally allowed me to continue farming. And even after my brain injury, I had Agribility come out and do a full assessment with me. And basically what they do is they come out to your farm, they watch you, they see what you do, they give you a site assessment, give you a plan on what you can do to make things a little safer for you, or adaptable technologies that you can incorporate in your own yard to help you do the things you can't do. So some great information over there as well. But you all are here for talking about accessible technology. So let's just start with some of the fun stuff that we have here today to talk about. So I'm going to first just talk about kind of what happens outside the bee yard. So we come into, you come to the bee yard. Most of the time, if they're not at your house, they're somewhere, remotely located on a farm, somewhere like that. Generally, you're far away from medical attention, and most of the time, you're working by yourself. So those types of things you have to keep in mind when you're working with bees. Now, a super full of honey and a 10-frame piece of equipment, that's 85 to 100 pounds you're lifting. And if you're walking across a surface that's unleveled or has tripping hazards, that can be a very dangerous situation very, very quickly. So one of the things when you're coming into the bee yard to think about is, something as basic as getting stuff out of the back of the truck. Getting up and down into a flatbed or into a bed of a truck is, taxing. And you also can experience some injury when that happens if you're jumping out. One of the easiest accessible tools that you can get for your pickup truck or for your car, whatever you're using, so that you don't have to get up into the bed and reach into there, is just a garden hose. I can reach into the bed of my truck and grab a hive body and pull it right to me without ever getting up into that truck bed. So no jumping down, none of that. It's very simple accommodation, which probably all of you have in your own personal garden shed right now. Just put it in the back of your truck, and there you go. A very simple technology to grab and pull items to you. So that's just something just to get started. Now, once you get into the apiary, the thing I always think about is like vegetation management. I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. We have lots of bears where I live, so electrical fences are a must. Maintaining fence lines is a really important part about being an effective beekeeper, because if they start grounding out on vegetation, that fence line becomes just defenseless. One of the things you're going to be doing a lot of times is running, two-stroke equipment, weed whips, string trimmers, things like that. That vibration So with my brain injury, vibration causes a lot of issues. A very simple, accessible technology that you can use to limit vibration are anti-vibration gloves. You can actually buy these on Amazon. This was a recommendation from Agribility for me because even driving a tractor is difficult for me. These limit the vibration that comes up through your arms. Even if you're just doing lawn maintenance, these things are fantastic. About $30 off of Amazon. They are absolutely fantastic. And I'll give us all a few minutes to come and play with this stuff once we're done here. But anti-vibration gloves can be a very nice, accessible tool to limit the vibration that's coming up through your arms. String trimming is no fun, and this helps limit that. The other thing you might think about is all the battery-powered stuff that's coming out now. I've been trying to get a battery-powered steel set up for I don't know how long, but apparently everybody wants that right now, and nobody can get it. But these are a great accommodation to the beehive, something that I always carry with me as a pair of pruning shoes. Those little knobbies that are on the ground, as we're moving into the apiary, thinking about moving equipment back and forth. It's a lot to do. Now, we always have to carry all sorts of goodies with us. Smoke, pens for marking my queens, all of these different things. A simple toolbox to put all of that stuff into, whether it's a large toolbox, this is my wife's beekeeping toolbox, much smaller, much easier to carry, but still, well, it can't hold my tall smoker. It'll hold my short smoker, but you get the idea. But basically, you can put all this stuff in here and move back and forth to the apiary without having to try and, fumble with a lot of the stuff. Fumbling around with stuff is not safe in the apiary. And these are both toolboxes I made. Now, you can also buy these as like garden, boxes to work with gardens and things like that. But a very helpful piece of equipment to be able to move in and out of the apiary. Now, thinking about material handling, we've got all sorts of material handling things here. One of the things, I produce a lot of nukes. And I always get calls back from my customers after they take their nukes, and they say, okay, I love the product. What do I do with this box that you gave to me? And this is what we use. We use the Just for Easy Nuke boxes for all of the nukes that we produce. This may not seem like a piece of adaptive equipment, but it absolutely is. And adaptive equipment, pretty much anything, as long as it's helping you limit the amount of weight you're carrying or really kind of allowing you to do things that you may not be able to do. If you're using 10-frame equipment, lifting one of these boxes full of honey is very difficult, even for me. And 5 frames, you're essentially cutting the weight in half. So when I tell people what to do with this after you get it, use it as a honey harvesting box. I can put 5 frames of honey in here. I cut the weight in half of what's in the box. And then I can use some little cart like this little hand cart here, stack these up on here, and now my material handling is much easier. I'm not lifting honey frames anywhere. I'm literally just moving things around in a very easy manner. Not tripping it all over your floor. You can close this up real nicely so the bees aren't getting back in there as you're harvesting. It is a very nice piece of equipment to use for that. The other thing I tell people for these make excellent swarm traps. If you're looking to catch swarms, I see people make all sorts of different boxes and things like this. This is a fantastic box. It's already had bees in it, so it's already got a little wax built up on the side. Fantastic swarm trap. So something just to limit the amount of weight that you're carrying around. Also during honey harvesting as well, depending on the surface that you're working with, fold-up carts like this are really nice. This will hold 300 pounds, so you can put quite a lot on here. Also, if you do markets, you go do a farmer's market or something like that, and you have to move honey back and forth, a little fold-up cart like this is a really great accommodation. I can literally just fold this up flat and carry it around with you. So again, keep limiting the amount of weight that you're carrying around. It's a really nice way to accommodate things in an apiary. The other thing you want to think about is maybe even the type of hive style that you're using. So Langstroth hives are industry standard, and most people are using them. You see here, this is the Aja hive, or the AZ hive. This is an Eastern European hive. This is kind of the traditional style of hive in Eastern Europe. And basically what it incorporates is this style hives, where instead of lifting boxes and moving them, so you're not moving hive bodies, instead what you have here is you're working it from the back. And so you can literally pull up a chair and work your bees, or if you have mobility limitations, say you're using a walker or wheelchair, this is an excellent adaptive piece of equipment. Yeah. So this is an actual Aja hive from Europe. American Aja hives have been adapted to accept Langstroth frames, and I've seen many different versions. And I was actually talking to Joe a little earlier. I had one donated to Heroes To Hives where they actually flipped the Langstroth frames upside down, and we're using them upside down. But yes, there are several manufacturers that are making these that accept Langstroth frames, which I think is kind of an attractive feature because, you know, you're not going to call Katie and get 500 of these delivered to you. So, I mean, think to yourself, boy, if I didn't have to lift those boxes every single time, how easy would everything be? Everything from honey harvesting to inspections, because that's the worst part of it, is mid-season, you know, and I'm sure you guys probably have already had quite a lot of honey flow because I see trefoil already blooming. But right now, mid-season, if you want to do an inspection for all the stuff you need to season the brood chamber, you got to lift every one of those honey supers off before you can get any of that information. This allows you just to go right for the goods. You're right in the brood chamber the second you want to be there. Another adaptive piece of equipment would be a long hive. So this is a long Langstroth hive. So it's basically, it's like a coffin. And you have standard deep Langstroth frames in here. This is a very attractive piece of equipment if you were dealing with a mobility restriction. One of the nice things that I've seen a lot of people do with these long langs is actually create hive stands that articulate. So you can actually attach an articulating stand to this, and this whole thing rotates to you. So someone in a wheelchair or someone in a walker can come right up to that, tilt that entire thing, and be able to work that hive right from their chair. It's a really nice piece of equipment. Now, I will say there's limitations to long hives. And the limitation is where you live. Y'all live in Indiana, you probably can get this through the winter no problem. Where I live, where we get almost 300 inches of snow a year, and winter's pretty much 6 to 7 months long, we can't really use this effectively, mainly because there's not honey stores above. So lots of different technologies that are coming out in the industry around this. And I think that overall, in the industry, we're starting to see people realize that, you know, people want to keep bees. And not everybody is as able-bodied as the next person. Better Bee just came out licensed, just came out with an extractor that articulates as well. So you have an 8-frame extractor that's on an articulating stand, so someone in a wheelchair or with mobility restrictions can use that as well. But these are fantastic accommodations, and it's just kind of thinking a little bit differently. You know, we see Langstroth all the time, and I'm a Langstroth user myself, and I really am a big proponent of them, but there are alternative styles that help individuals with some of those lifting limitations and things like that. The other thing that I would say about lifting limitations is that, you know, accommodations don't always have to be, I have to buy a whole new hive style. Accommodations can also come in the thing of about just think about things differently. So, for example, 10 frame, 8 frame. If you have lifting restrictions of any kind, or if you're just a human that's aging in the natural aging process, this is heavy, this is lighter, using 2 frames and a little bit of material on it. You're reducing your weight by about 5 to 7, maybe 10 pounds by moving to 8-frame equipment. I am a huge proponent of 8-frame equipment for people with disabilities because this box is much lighter than this box. The other accommodation is just switching from deeps and mediums to all mediums. The bees don't care what type of box they're in. They're using the space efficiently. And you can see here that a medium, or a deep and 2 mediums, if you have 4 mediums, it's about the same amount of space and the same amount of honey storage that you get out of this assortment. But the weight is much, much less. So you're just carrying around much less. I love moving medium supers. I hate working deep colonies. Even I hate being handled. If you have arthritis in your hand, this is much easier to handle. Oops, that's a medium frame as well. But that is much easier to handle than this. You literally have 3 inches less of material in every single frame. And so that weight gets taken off. So even when you're doing inspections, I mean, I run around 100 colonies in our operation. If I were doing inspections with these all day long, this hand would be just wrecked by the end of the day. I'm going to have to give myself a couple of stings in each hand just to get through the rest of the day. But this is a much easier carry to handle. The other thing about hive bodies is, well, maybe you've already bought into all of this and you don't have the opportunity to switch over to 8-frame equipment. If you're new to beekeeping, I always tell people just buy 8-frame medium equipment. If you plan on doing this for any length of time, if you're, over 40, this is a nice accommodation. The other thing to think about is what you can do to your hive bodies to improve the ergonomics of them. You can see that both of these hive bodies have cleats on them. So this doesn't even have handholds cut in it. This is just cleats. Gives you a little bit of more surface area to grab onto. Now, if you have all this length trough equipment, you know this is a very narrow piece of equipment right here. You're literally grabbing with your fingertips. I have friends that have arthritis in their hands that can't physically do that. This is very difficult to do. So one of the easiest accommodations you can do to any piece of equipment you have is add cleats. And what you see here is I mount the cleats right above the handhold, and so that goes from being, about a half an inch of material to now an inch and a half that I can grab onto. And I can grab onto this now. With my thumbs, I've got this. This is a heck of a lot easier to hold than this. And this is scrap wood from the wood shop. You know, those 6-inch pieces that you don't know what to do with? This is what you do with them. Just put them on there. And this is just glued on here with a 1.5-inch staple. Very easy accommodation. And you can do it just on the prominent side so you can carry it. You can do it on all sides. But this becomes a very easy piece of equipment to work with doing that.
Hey, Adam, do you wrap your hives with those on there? Because I thought about putting those on, but then wrapping the hive.
The wrapping, I do wrap my hives with 15-pound tar paper in the winter. And it's not to keep the bees warm. I know that's like a misconception. It's literally for spring buildup when they start to break cluster. I want that heat to be able to absorb during those warm days to allow that cluster to spread out a little more. But when I use these, this just becomes loose around there. The tar paper does not have to be tight to the hive. So these work just fine, even under tar.
Thank you.
All right, so before I get into some of the hive lift type of stuff, the other thing I want to mention is, there's also just things that we can buy that are very easy and are made specifically to help people, like this back brace I'm wearing. This is a $25 back brace from Walmart, and this helps me continue to lift and support my back throughout the day. Going through 50 or 100 hives during the day, your back is destroyed by the end of the day. And a simple back brace can help a lot with doing that. The other thing is that beekeepers are at risk for hernias. I have one myself right now that I'm getting surgery here on in about 4 weeks. But these types of things also can prevent things like umbilical hernias as well, because you have that tension that's pressed down on your stomach. So another really nice piece of equipment that you can just add into your regular regimen of things that I need to have in my beekeeping box. All right, so hive lift. There are many styles of hive lifts out on the market now. When I first started beekeeping about 16 years ago, there were not very many of these around. And I ended up getting a tar lift. I think I might have been one of the first people in the United States to get one of these imports. And the tar lift is another version of this that basically does the same thing. This is hive lifts are things that essentially just allow you to carry this whole thing. Dayton makes them, Man Lake makes them. You have some that you can use a standard fork dolly, so you can come up with just a dolly, get underneath this, and move it. That's a simple hive lift. They've also got like the 2-man lifts where you come around and you compress the hive body and you can lift it up. Those are great. If you're moving whole hive bodies all the time, that's fantastic. But most of us need hive body assistance with lifting. and mainly inspection. And what these individual hive body lifts allow you to do is this allows you to pick up this hive from any position. So let's demonstrate. I'm going to loosen this up so that we can get this off of here. And then we're going to get into this hive right now. And I had a veil sitting around here somewhere. Well, where did it go? Easy peasy. We're going to basically talk about this hive lift in the context of what you can do during inspection. So say, for example, this hive right here, we'll say it's 4 stories tall right now. You've got 100 pounds of honey on top of this, and you're here to do a mite inspection. That means that we would have to move each one of these hive bodies off of here before we ever even got into the hive. Let's see. So basically, you're going to come up to your hive, and you're going to decide which hive body do I want to lift. This is top cover. And then what you're going to do is you're going to come up with your lift and basically line it up with wherever you want to pick up from. So in this situation, I want to get down to my bottom breach. So I'm going to come up with the hive lift. And you see that the tabs on the side hook into your handhold. And we're going to give it a little. This is a boat winch that's on there. So this is not super fancy technology. In fact, there are lots of plans online. There are lots of plans online for DIY versions of these. Line it up. Here. Get those into the handhold. Give it a little tension here. All right, so now we're connected here. The next piece of this is just loosening your hive body up. All right, the hive body loose. Now the fun part. And now I can take, say, 3, 4, 5 hive bodies. The Captar lift has a 350-pound capacity. I'm not sure what this one has. 600. So I can move this out of the way. It stands just fine. I can do my hive inspection. Really nice accommodation. I mean, when you talk about things that are going to limit the effects of beekeeping on your back, have you ever heard of beekeeper's back? That's a common thing in our industry. This is a great way to mitigate that. In addition, this will also move full hive. So if this was ratcheted together, we could lift this entire hive up and put this into a flatbed of a truck. I'm not sure, Joe, if you tested this, but the Captar lift lifts high enough for me to be able to get this into the bed of my truck. So that's another advantage of this. Really nice piece of equipment. Now that we're in the hive, let's talk a little bit about ergonomics in the hive. Let's just get a time check here. We got 15 minutes. We have a half hour, I think. 15 after is our session. All right. So now we're in the hive. What are some nice accommodations that we can use to basically help us while we're working in the hive? Hive tool, style. There's lots of styles of hive tools out there. We've got the standard hive tool, the J-hook, the Kent Williams hive tool, all these fancy different hive tools. But all of these can be ergonomic pieces of equipment as well. You'll notice that this hive tool has a paddle on the handle. If you have arthritis or struggle with gripping things, A little extra padding can help a lot. It doesn't have, this was one that was bought from Man Lake, so they've got their brand on there, but pool noodles, any of you that have kids and those pool noodles that you see all the time, you can cut a pool noodle up and put it right around the handle of your hive tool, and now you've got a little extra surface to grip onto, makes it a little easier to use. So that's one accommodation. You can see this is another different style of a handle that's got a little more surface area to grip onto. Now, if you're thinking about working hives with back restrictions, knee restrictions, those types of things, a little garden seat works really nice for working in the apiary. I can literally just come up to my hive, set my stool up, and work right into the hive. The other thing that's really nice about this is some people like to work on their knees when you get down to this level, and I have some beekeepers I work with that wear knee pads. This also flips over, and so I can come up to my hive, kneel down, and then I've also got handles to help me get back up as well. Really nice piece of equipment. I think we got this from a yard sale for like $10. So, you know, you can find these things new, but it also folds up, so all of these legs fold in to make it easy to transport as well. And you can buy these online all day long for, I think, about $40. So I'm going to get into my hive here, and let's talk back about our hive tools. So I've got all these different styles of hive tools. Now, most of you, if you're a beginning beekeeper, the standard hive tool is like the hive tool that everybody starts with. And, you know, it does its job, but there are some other hive tools out there that offer a little bit in ergonomics. So with the standard hive tool, we come in, we're going to break these propolis seals like so. Give them a little bit of smoke there.
Okay, so now that we're playing this out, it just looks like I flipped it out a little bit, but it does look
Ooh, they're a little feisty today.
Because there's no seam or piece on there at all, probably tells you that there's nothing in there. But
Now with the standard hive tool, getting the frames out can sometimes be an issue.
Yep.
I don't know if you've all experienced this, but you get to this stage right here, and now you're like, okay, I need to get the frame out of there. I'm going to come dig over on the side bar over here and try and get this loose. Or I'm going to come in here and try to hook this frame and pull it out like so.
Yeah, whenever they move.
Although it does work, it's not the easiest tool to use in that situation. What might be an easier accommodation is something that gives you a little bit of leverage to get these frames out of here, so that you're not trying to just jam your finger under here while you're working with a standard hive tool. The J-hook is my go-to hive tool. And the reason is, if you're familiar with this hive tool, the way that it works a little bit differently than the standard hive tool is instead of using the back end piece to break frames apart, you use the front piece here. And so you basically slip this into a frame like so, you turn it, and you break those seals loose. Now, once I'm ready to get my frame out, I slip that under there, just like so. I use the ledge, so this J hooks under the frame, the frame you're pulling out, and the rest right here sits on the opposing frame. And I literally can just come in here and turn that, and it pops that frame right out. I'll go right to the other side. I can pull this right in here, pop this frame, and it comes right out. And bingo, I've got my frame in.
I love the J-hooks.
The J-hooks are well worth their money.
Yes.
Y'all have some feisty bees in Indiana?
Didn't like to move here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so that's the J-hook. The Kent Williams hive tool is kind of the combination of both the standard and the J-hook. And, you know, when it comes to hive tools, this is the most expensive hive tool you're going to buy. They're usually around $25 or so. The J-hook and the standard are about the same price. They're usually around $10. Now, the Kent Williams just incorporates both technologies, so I can come in here, I can break frames apart with that standard edge there, but then I've got this huge piece here that allows me to hook and pull out, just like the J-hook. So, a nice little piece of technology you're going to have to buy anyways, a hive tool anyways. I would recommend starting to think about the J-hook or the Kent Williams tool. Now, for those of us that have been beekeeping any period of time, you realize that these do end up in your pockets. And I have leather seats in my car. $1,500 later, I have a new leather seat in my car. Because this piece right here punches holes in car seats, and if you have heated car seats and all these other technologies they put in car seats nowadays, they get pretty darn expensive. So this is actually a money-saving tool too if you want to prevent doing upholstery work in your car. So another big thing there. The other thing for people with lifting restrictions, the one thing I tell folks, you don't always need to use your hands when you're working these, trying to pull frames out. There are these tools like this that allow you to basically grab onto the frame and pull the whole darn thing out. These are nice little pieces of technology as well. And nice honey frame there, a little bit of brood on there. But nice easy thing you could do one-handed, right? For people, so I work with a lot of veterans. Vets that have amputations, especially hand amputation, arm amputations, this is a really nice piece of technology. It allows you to basically handle a frame one-handed.
Another one or something.
All right. Another thing you should be thinking about as well out in the yard is working surfaces. So this motion that we do, this pick up, lift, rotate, put down, that is terrible on the back, the knees. That twisting motion is just a horrible thing to have to do over and over again with weight on. One way to kind of eliminate that lifting piece of it and make things a little more ergonomic is to actually bring out a table. Or in this situation, I have a bench. I bought this bench from Costco. I think I got 2 of them for $80. This has a 600-pound capacity to it. I can take any hive body that I'm pulling off of a hive, and instead of doing pick up, rotate, put down on the ground, and then pick back up, I can just basically turn around and put this on a stool. This is also a really nice working height as well. Oh, well, I'm a short guy. If you're taller, you're going to need something a little taller. So for the accommodation on that, telescoping tables. They make, small plastic tables that fold up that have telescoping legs, and that's what I used for about 5 years, was a table with telescoping legs that I could get to the right work height for me so that I could basically take a box off, put it on the table, and work the box on the table. Very nice piece of equipment to be able to limit that bending down piece that's just so devastating on our backs over time. So another really nice piece of equipment that allows you to kind of limit that weight that we're lifting. All right, so I think we've got probably about 10 or 15 minutes here. We're almost there. So I got 2 more things I want to chat about, and then I want to give you all the opportunity to just kind of come and see this stuff. So the workshop. The woodshop, we all do a lot of woodworking and beekeeping. Whether it's assembling equipment, repairing equipment, whatever it is, we're always in the wood shop, especially during the off season. The wood shop can be a place where you can also add adaptive technology. This is one of the cheapest things you can use to save your feet in a wood shop, is a pad to work on. So you can buy these from pretty much anywhere. This is just a padded standing pad. So when I'm assembling frames or I'm assembling hive bodies, I'm standing on this and it takes the fatigue off of the legs. A lot of fatigue off the legs. The other things that work really well are insoles in your boots. Actual insoles really help with being on your feet all the time. You do an 8-hour day in the bee yard, your dogs are tired. And these insoles can really help. The other one that I found that a lot of people don't even think about are your socks. Your socks can be adaptive pieces of technology. They can help with ergonomics. Compression socks is all I wear in the apiary. And I'll do a short advertisement. These are Bombas compression socks. These socks are the only socks I use when I work bees. Because when I work bees, I'm out there for 4 to 8 hours in the bee yard. And with these compression socks, it relieves the fatigue on the feet. And so something as simple as the type of socks you're wearing can help you in the bee yard. The last piece of equipment that I'm going to kind of cover today is this piece right here. This is weed exclusion cloth. These things generally have about a 15 to 25-year warranty on them, or useful life, I should say, not warranty. This is stuff that landscapers use, nursery production uses all the time to keep the weeds out and allow their plants to have kind of an accessible place where it's just the plant growing out of the material. For beekeepers, this is an awesome piece of technology. Your bee yard has tripping hazards everywhere, including tall grass. Tall grass is also a tripping hazard. By setting up an apiary on this material, you eliminate all the grass, you can level the area and then put this down, and now you have a surface that's both permeable and level and safe to walk on. This is amazing to have in your apiary. The other thing that this does is it also doubles as an IPM tool. Who has small hive beetles or has experienced small hive beetles? So small hive beetles are kind of a tough thing to manage, especially when they're in their larval or adult forms because they're in your hive creating chaos. The point of vulnerability in the life cycle of a small hive beetle is the pupal stage, which happens right out in front of your beehive in the ground. So an apiary that has this on it, this is a barrier for small hive beetle to pupate. They can't get through this material. Some people use cardboard. I've had people use all sorts of different things to create that barrier for that pupal stage. This is an easy way to create a barrier and create a safer surface for you to work on. It's just by using some lead extrusion foam. You can buy this stuff by the roll. It comes in everything from 3 to 12-foot rolls. And you roll it out, you staple it down with some landscape staples, and you're done. It'll kill all the vegetation below, creates a nice level surface for you to move around. So what we've covered kind of today is kind of a broad spectrum of all sorts of different technologies that you can incorporate. The thing to keep in mind is that accessibility does not have to be expensive. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned working with Agribility over the last 15 years is that when it comes to these ideas about how we can make beekeeping a little easier, it doesn't have to be a $1,500 hive. It can be something as simple as a $10 hive or scrap wood that you have laying around the shop that you put onto your hive body. It can be very simple stuff. But when you're thinking about yourself as a beekeeper, we all got to be honest with ourselves. None of us are getting any younger. The injuries aren't getting any better. So thinking about this stuff ahead of time and start making a plan in place for, I plan on keeping bees for the next 20 years. Maybe I can think about shifting to all 8-frame medium equipment because now I'm not, in 10 years from now, this hive body is a no-go. So think about those things as you're kind of getting into your beekeeping career, as you're starting to develop out apiaries. If you're new into this, great, because you haven't spent $100,000 on 10-frame equipment yet. You can start with the 8-frame stuff. And down here, I'll be real honest, I keep bees in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. When bees cluster up in the winter, how often when you guys get out of the winter on 10-frame equipment, do you have 2 honey frames on the outside to sit in? We have it all the time because the bees cluster up in the winter and they miss those outside frames as they're moving up as a cluster to honey towards the thermal register. So thinking about that, most of the time they miss the 2 outside frames. By switching to 8-frame, you're actually increasing efficiency because they're not going to miss those outside frames anymore. My 8-frame equipment, they touch every piece of food, they go through every single box, and they hit every piece of honey that's in there. My 10-frame equipment, I usually omit the last 2 frames are the ones that they usually miss because they're clustered up